Sis, I want to speak to the woman within you who has been too generous with her truth. Not her truth and purpose, not her truth and power, but her truth and privacy. There are places in your soul that were never meant to be broadcast, no matter how emotionally safe a moment feels. There are details, fears, dreams, and stories that were never meant to be laid bare before a man, no matter how close he seems, no matter how charming he sounds, no matter how deep the connection feels in that moment. You see, there's something sacred about a woman who knows what not to say. It's not about deception, it's about discernment. The enemy doesn't always show up with a pitchfork. Sometimes he shows up as a man with questions. Sometimes as a man who only wants access to what should have remained holy ground. We live in a world that tells women to be open, to be real, to lay it all out there. But wisdom will remind you that not everything sacred should be shared. Your vulnerability is not a strategy. It's not a test to see if he stays. It's a gift. And not every man is anointed enough to handle it. What the Spirit of God is saying in this moment is simple. Guard your pearls. Stop offering sacred information to people who haven't passed the tests of alignment. And today, I'm going to walk you through 6 powerful things a woman must learn to keep private, not from fear, not from games, but from divine wisdom. Because not everything should be spoken, and not every man deserves the keys to the hidden rooms of your soul. There's something dangerous about giving a man access to the very thing you're still in the process of healing from. Not because all men are unsafe, but because your insecurities are sacred wounds. And sacred wounds should only be exposed to people assigned by God to handle them. Many women, in the name of vulnerability, have offered up the blueprint of their brokenness to someone who didn't have the maturity, the covering, or the calling to carry that truth well. And when that man left, or worse, used that information against her, she didn't just lose a relationship, she lost a sense of safety with herself. You don't owe a man the full map of your pain in order to be loved. True connection doesn't require emotional nakedness at the cost of spiritual exposure. Your insecurities, those hidden fears about your appearance, your worth, your past, your voice, your dreams, they are not proof that you're unworthy of love. They are proof that you're human. And they are still in God's hands for refinement, not on display for validation. Sometimes we speak out of nervousness, out of the fear that if we don't tell everything now, we might lose the moments. So we confess what should have been discerned. We open the closet of pain, hoping for a reaction of love. But no man, no matter how patient, how gentle, or how invested, should become the mirror through which you determine your beauty or value. That's too heavy a responsibility for any human. And that's not wisdom, that's desperation wearing a spiritual disguise. When you share the deepest parts of yourself with someone who is in your covenant, you create a false intimacy, a closeness that feels spiritual, but is emotionally manipulated by nature. Because it wasn't born from revelation, it was born from fear of abandonment. And here's the truth. When someone hasn't asked God how to love you, they will love you through the lens of your weakness, not your worthiness. They'll see you as something to manage, not someone to honor. Discernment isn't just about red flags. It's about knowing the right timing for disclosure. A healed woman knows when to speak and when to seal, when to reveal and when to withhold, when to say, this is for my therapist, and when to say, this is between me and God. Not because she's hiding, but because she understands that divine privacy It's not secrecy, it's stewardship. Your deepest insecurities are often the same places God plans to anoint you. That fear of being overlooked, He's using it to birth your voice. That scar from rejection, He's building a ministry from it. That childhood wound that still stings, He's turning it into a mantle of compassion. But the enemy knows that if he can get you to prematurely expose those things to the wrong person, he can pervert the purpose they were meant to fulfill. So this is your reminder, sis. Not every man who listens deserves the story. Not every man who leans in deserves the truth. Wait for the one who prays before he speaks, who discerns before he desires, who covers before he questions. Because when God sends the right man, he won't need your wounds to decide your worth. He'll see the glory, even if you never say a word about the pain. There's a weight you carry as a woman, not just for yourself, but often for the history you were born into, the narratives of your bloodline, the scars your mother never spoke about, the shame your father never healed, the secrets that shaped you before you even had language for them. And sometimes, in the intimacy of a relationship, you may feel compelled to open that vault, to explain the dysfunction, to justify the silence, to offer a man the behind-the-scenes look at a story that was never his to watch. But daughter of God, there is wisdom in protecting what your family never asked you to disclose. Not every relationship is the place for generational transparency. Not every man deserves to be seated in the courtroom of your family's past. And not every truth you carry should be spoken in the name of being real. Sometimes, what you call honesty is actually a spiritual leak. Because in the rush to be known, you've handed over a treasure that required discretion. There's a deep difference between confession and covenant. When a man hasn't made a decision to love you in fullness, body, spirit, and bloodline, then you must resist the urge to expose what your family has lived and endured. The trauma, the abuse, the mental illness, the financial ruin, the betrayal, the things that shaped your childhood. Yes, they matter. Yes, they affect how you love, trust, and show up. But telling him everything doesn't make you safer. It makes you spiritually uncovered. God never anoints you to expose your family's nakedness for acceptance. Think about Noah's sons. When Noah was drunk and exposed, the son who mocked his vulnerability was cursed, but the ones who covered him without looking were blessed. There's blessing in how you handle the humanity of your bloodline. Even when they've hurt you, even when you're healing from them. You may feel tempted to share that your dad abandoned you or your mother never affirmed you. And yes, there are moments where context is important, but you must first ask, is this conversation for healing or is it an audition for empathy? Am I sharing this to explain or to be pitied? Because a man who sees your family through a broken lens may also begin to see you through that same distortion. And here's another layer to consider. When you reveal family secrets prematurely, you unconsciously transfer spiritual judgment onto someone who hasn't been called to intercede. What they now know about your sister, your brother, your parent, it sits in their mind, even if they never say it. Even if the relationship ends. Even if they never mishandle the information outwardly. That knowledge now lives in someone else's hands. And that's a form of soul exposure. This is why discernment must bleed your transparency. It's not about pretending your family is perfect. It's about protecting the altar of your lineage while God continues to redeem it. You can be honest about the impact without unpacking every layer. You can name the pattern without defiling the people. You can invite someone into your world without dragging them through every corner of its history. A mature woman doesn't just speak truth, she stewards truth. She knows how to cover those who never covered her. She knows how to honor those who never protected her. Not because they deserved it, but because she understands the weight of generational restoration. That what she says now can either heal or harm her future household. So before you share your family's secrets in the name of bonding, ask the Holy Spirit, is this man a safe place for legacy or just a visitor to my vulnerability? Because the man who is truly sent by God will love you, pursue you, and protect you, even without the need to dissect everything you survived. And when the time comes, when you are in covenant, when the Spirit releases you, then what you share will not be out of pressure, but from a place of peace. There's something the Holy Spirit is urging you to understand in this season. Closure doesn't come from confession, it comes from discernment. And too many women are out here giving men a full tour of their romantic history in the name of honesty, when in reality they are trading mystery for false intimacy and sowing seeds of insecurity into a soil that wasn't even ready. Hear me, daughter of God. The past is not your enemy, but it is not your introduction either. When a man meets you, he is not meeting your ex. He is meeting you, a woman reborn, a woman refined, a woman reshaped by God's hand. So when you keep resurrecting every heartbreak, every betrayal, every mistake, you're not proving your transparency. You're feeding a narrative of brokenness that God has already healed in private. There is power in privacy. There is dignity in restraint. Not because you have something to hide, but because you have something to protect. Your past relationships were assignments. Some were lessons. Some were wounds. Some were divine detours, but they were never meant to become proof text in your new connection. A man who is truly sent by God won't need the full syllabus of your romantic past to discern the glory on your future. You do not owe a man a detailed confession of who broke your heart, who cheated, who ghosted, who betrayed, or who couldn't love you right. Not because you're ashamed, but because you are no longer the woman who lived that chapter. You've grown, you've healed, you've come into identity, and repeating those stories to someone who hasn't been spiritually assigned to carry them reopens altars you were called to shut. So many women rehearse their past in an attempt to seem real. They say, I've been through some things, and then spend hours painting their past with graphic detail, hoping the man across from them will say, I'd never do that to you. But what if his comfort isn't a sign of safety? It's a tool of curiosity. What if your transparency is being met with flesh, not discernment? Every time you speak of an old relationship, especially with emotion, you are either reattaching yourself to an old soul tie or giving new authority to a person God removed. That's not just emotional, it's spiritual. Your words are binding. Your memories, when spoken with weight, carry power. And so the more you testify about what hurt you, the more you recenter your identity around what you've survived instead of what God has restored. There is wisdom in saying, yes, I've been in relationships, some left marks, but those details aren't what define me. There is wisdom in keeping the names, dates, and dirty details between you and the cross, because in the right time, with the right man, God will give you language, not just memory. He'll allow you to speak from a healed place. not a bleeding one. And you know it's the right moment because it won't feel like confession, it'll feel like completion. And this is where many women get stuck, thinking that telling everything proves they've got nothing to hide. But real power lies in what you choose not to say, in what you refuse to relive, in what you keep sacred because it belongs to your healing, not to his curiosity. Your past relationships are not to be paraded, compared, or relived. They are to be buried beneath the blood, sealed in the archive of testimony, not trauma. And any man who demands every detail in the name of love doesn't understand the difference between possession and partnership. So walk boldly in your present identity, not your past pain. Speak wisely, discern deeply. Let silence become your covering where noise once lived. And trust what God healed in secret doesn't need to be retold in full. Let's talk about something that too many women are told to overlook in the name of transparency: money and emotional exposure. Because while it's noble to be open, it's not always wise to be exposed. And one of the most dangerous forms of exposure in modern relationships is revealing your financial weaknesses to a man who has not yet proven covenant, consistency, or covering. You see, there is a difference between sharing your story and surrendering your security. Your money, how you manage it, how much you lack, what you struggle to save, is not just a detail, it's a gate. And if the wrong person walks through that gate prematurely, he doesn't just see your lack, he sees leverage. Many women, especially those with nurturing hearts, tend to lead with trust. They open up about past financial mistakes, current debt, or even desperation in hopes of connection, empathy, or assistance. But emotional intimacy is not an automatic green light for financial vulnerability. When a man hasn't shown himself to be a protector of your soul, why should he be entrusted with your economic blueprint? God didn't place stewardship in your hands just to be handed over in a moment of emotional bonding. Stewardship is sacred. It's a form of dominion. Your financial struggles, decisions, and growth are all under the authority of God, and until someone steps into the divine order of marriage, they're not your financial partner, period. If a man asks you questions like, how much do you make? Or how do you afford that place? Early on, and you feel pressure to answer for the sake of honesty or attraction, pause. Because while curiosity may seem harmless, sometimes it is an invitation into manipulation. People can disguise control as concern. And when you offer up your financial wounds too quickly, you risk being seen as a charity project instead of a purpose partner. It says the enemy is cunning. If he knows you feel ashamed about your finances, he'll send someone who seems financially strong, but who slowly begins to take over the areas of your life where you feel weak. That's not God. That's not kingdom. That's a setup. And it works both ways. Even if you're financially stable, if you begin to disclose your accounts, assets, investments, or family wealth to a man whose spirit you have not discerned, you're being transparent. You're being targeted. The world will tell you to lead with what you own. The kingdom tells you to guard what God has given. Your financial testimony, how you got out of debt, how God sustained you in lack, how he gave you business ideas, is a weapon of encouragement, but it is not a doorway for everyone. Some testimonies are meant for platforms. Others are meant for pillows shared in covenant. And the wisdom to know the difference is a mark of a maturing woman. Just because a man shares your bed in conversation does not mean he shares your burden in intercession. Financial intimacy should only follow spiritual alignment, not romantic chemistry, not emotional connection, not good conversation, and definitely not physical attraction. The man who is truly from God won't need access to your pockets to prove his intentions. He will see your value long before he knows your net worth. He will honor your boundaries around money because he respects your obedience to God's voice, not his pressure. So cover your financial life in prayer. Keep your ledgers between you and the Lord until God gives clearance. And if the topic arises prematurely, ask yourself, is this a conversation birthed in trust or triggered by trauma? Am I seeking validation through disclosure? Am I proving I'm worthy by confessing I'm struggling? Wisdom will lead you to protect what God is still refining, because your finances, just like your heart, are a territory, and not everyone has the authority to walk through your gates. There's a sacred place God invites his daughters into, a spiritual chamber where he whispers things that the world has not yet seen. This is the realm of prophetic dreams and visions, a place where God shows you glimpses of the future, warnings of unseen danger, or blueprints for your destiny. But here's the divine caution, sis. Just because God showed it to you doesn't mean you're supposed to share it, especially not with a man who hasn't earned spiritual access to your innermost revelations. We live in a culture that confuses visibility with intimacy, but spiritual things require spiritual discernment. When you speak prematurely about the divine things God is forming in the secret place, you run the risk of delaying or distorting what he is trying to establish. Not every man is mature enough to hear your God-given dreams and respond with humility. Some will try to compete with them. Others will mock them. And the most dangerous will weaponize them. Remember Joseph. God gave him dreams of greatness, visions of leadership, of influence, of elevation. But when he shared those dreams too soon, even with his own brothers, it led to betrayal. They couldn't handle the magnitude of what God had revealed to him. They didn't have the vision to match his destiny. And the same can happen to you when you share prophetic insight with carnal ears. Your visions are not conversation starters. They are assignments. When God trusts you with spiritual imagery, whether through dreams, strong impressions, or divine ideas, it's a sign that he is building something in you and through you. And when you offer that sacred knowledge to a man, just because you feel emotionally close to him, you're misplacing your mantle in the mouth of someone who may not be aligned with your future. Some women share their prophetic dreams in relationships because